This is a 2015 Mazda 5 minivan. In this video, I'm going to replace the driver's side CV axle. Let me show you why. The first step is to remove this driver's side wheel. The reason I'm replacing the axle is, you see that in there? That is grease that is being flung out of the inboard CV joint. And it means that the boot is got some kind of defect, and we're going to replace the whole axle. Next, I'm going to remove this center nut for the axle right here, and it is a 32 millimeter. It's zipped right off with an impact wrench. If you do not have an impact wrench, you may want to do this with the wheel on the ground and the brake on. Next, I'm going to take this outer tie rod out of the knuckle. So it has a cotter pin on top that I pull, then I'm going to loosen the nut, and then I'm going to pop the tie rod out with a ball joint removal tool. I'll show you in a minute. So this is actually secured by this spring clip, and you can just pull it out. It acts like a spring. You loosen one side and you just pull it straight out. I've loosened the 14 millimeter nut and spun it up to the very top of the stud so it's flush. This is the ball joint removal tool, one of the best tools you can own. I'm going to position it at the end of the tie rod on the knuckle. Here it is in place, and when I turn this 24 millimeter bolt down here, it will apply pressure to the stud and push it through the knuckle. So that loosens this right up, and I can remove it now very easily. But in order to proceed, I have to get the shaft of the strut out of the knuckle. So I'm going to loosen this bolt right here. A 17 millimeter deep socket is what you need for this one, and it should not cause too much trouble. And this is the bolt. Looks like they had some thread locker on it. Next, I'm going to disconnect this ABS sensor, which is down here, and I'm going to free its wire from this bracket. This came right off, and I'm going to tuck it safely out of the way up here in the strut springs. Next, I'm going to free up this brake line from this bracket, and it has a locking spring clip right here that you can pry off with a screwdriver. So you put the screwdriver in this little cavity right here, and you pry against the bracket, and it just moves little by little. You can use a little bit of penetrating oil and make it slide a little bit easier. So this pulls out like so. For the next step, you need a heavy hammer like this. You're just going to bang on this knuckle to get it to slide down the length of this shaft. With enough banging with the hammer, this ends up coming out like this. And it can also help if you use something to pry this apart from the back. But it just takes a lot of hammering, and this comes out. And then if you're lucky, the axle just pops right out of the hub. You don't need to use an extractor to press it out. Now I'm under the car to pop the axle out of the transmission, but however, unfortunately, this entire undercover needs to come off in order for me to reach it. There's no other way to get to it. So I did pop this axle out pretty easily, and the way I did it is I took this fork and I just kind of set it up under the edge, the inner edge of the CV joint cup right there. Then I had this hammer. This was from underneath, and I just gave it a couple of lateral blows like this, and it popped right out. This is my replacement axle right here with the box it came in, and here's the part number for anybody that's interested. I'm going to post a link for this one in the video description. And side by side, it does look to be the same thing, thank goodness for that. And here's another view of the axle. It looks to be pretty good construction. Now the only real difference is the original axle had like a rubber balancing weight right here, or a rubber damper, and these aftermarket axles never have the rubber damper on them. So what you want to do before you put the knuckle back through the lower arm of the strut is you want to take a chisel like this, and you just want to hammer it through the gap to widen the opening, and that will make the strut slide in a lot easier. Here's a view from the side, so I just hammer on that chisel and it splits this open. So to lower the car to the ground, you put a floor jack underneath the ball joint, the end of the control arm, lower control arm. Then to get this strut to engage into the knuckle, you want to push it all backwards, inboard, as hard as you can, and then it will pop in. Then you use the jack to lift up the knuckle and push it upwards as you wiggle it. So when you do the trick that I showed you with the chisel, this shaft just slides right into the knuckle, and in the back you want to make sure that this little flange is lined up with the slot in the knuckle. Now ideally, if you want to make absolutely sure that this has gone in all the way, then before you remove it, put a mark with some kind of marker pen, a bright mark, right on the arm of the strut where it goes in, and you'll know where the full insert position is when it lines up the mark again. Don't forget to stake this nut right here, and what I use for staking it is I take this fork just like that and I hammer it to stake the nut. This completes our repair. The wheel is back on securely. We're going to take it out for a test drive, and unless there is something new to report, this is the end of this video. So thank you for watching. Leave any comments or questions below.